Christmas Eve, 1986. In Rome, a high mass and prayers for peace by Pope John Paul. In Bethlehem, thousands make the pilgrimage to the birthplace of Jesus Christ. And as Santa makes his rounds to stuff some stockings around the globe, new revelations that some arms merchants may have stuffed their pockets with profits from the Iran arms deal.
This is INN, the Independent News, with Marvin Scott.
Good evening. Morton Dean is off tonight. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. A message that is missing this Christmas Eve as war rages on the Persian Gulf. Americans remain hostages in Lebanon, and the undercurrent of scandal pervades the holiday spirit in Washington. As President Reagan spends a quiet holiday at the White House and congressional investigators take a breather, new revelations are surfacing about the secret arms sales to Iran. The Independent News has learned that Israeli arms merchants may have skimmed more than $4 million from the profits. Middle East correspondent Jay Bushinsky reports that the Israeli government received only $3 million from the arms dealers and turned over to the U.S. government for one arms transaction involving 504 TOW missiles, for which the Iranians paid as much as $7.5 million.
Part of the money paid by the Iranians for the American-made arms transferred to them through Israel was turned over to the Israeli Defense Ministry. Its officials did not ask any questions or demand a detailed account of the transactions. They just sent the $3 million on to Washington. Israeli arms merchant Yaakov Nimrodi was quoted as saying he was paid $5 million for the TOW missiles and kept $1 million for himself as expenses. Defense Minister Yitzhak Rabin was informed that the Iranians paid $7.5 million, but neither he nor his staff saw fit to demand an explanation for the huge discrepancy. However, opposition member of parliament Yair Tsaban of the socialist Mapam party thinks there's ample reason for an inquiry.
I think it's a business for the matter for our state controller to check and to see what had happened with this sum.
Israeli officials say they know nothing of any portion of the Iranian payments being earmarked for the Nicaraguan rebels. The Israeli Defense Ministry denies that it maintains a bank account in Switzerland. The big question is, what happened to the rest of the money, whether any of it got to the Contras or all of it was skimmed off by the Israeli dealers. Saban opposed Israel's Iranian connection long before the United States joined it. In February 1984, he called for a parliamentary debate on the subject, but the issue was barred from the Knesset agenda. In his view, it was immoral for Israel to be providing military assistance to the Ayatollah Khomeini's regime.
I asked my government, are you aware of the fact that you are sending military equipment to Khomeini, who is training the terrorists from Hezbollah who are active in the southern part of Lebanon and are responsible for killing our sons? This is a vicious circle.
Israel's three top leaders, Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, Foreign Minister Shimon Peres, and Defense Minister Yitzhak Rabin, have been trying to keep a lid on this side of the Iranian arms scandal. They were the only cabinet members who knew about the shipment of Israeli arms to Iran as early as 1979 and of the transfer of American-made arms starting in 1985. If the financial aspect of the deals was crooked, if inordinate profits were skimmed by private Israeli arms dealers, if some of the Iranian money reached the Contras, Shamir, Peres, and Rabin may be accused here of bad political judgment or inept administration. Therefore, they do not want any questions to be asked about their involvement in the Iranian affair. The discrepancy between the amount of money paid by the Iranians for the arms received through Israel and the money transferred to the United States ranges between $2 and $4.5 million. However, the Israeli government seems to have no intention of making any inquiries into that problem. That job may be left to the American investigators. For the Independent News, this is Jay Bushinsky in Jerusalem.
And Bushinsky notes that the Israeli arms dealers are not the only ones who profited from the shipment of TOW missiles to Iran. According to Bushinsky's sources, Saudi arms merchant Adnan Khashoggi got at least $300,000 from the deal. The Washington Post reports that Khashoggi got quite a bit more, at least $2 million for arranging just one of 4 secret arms deals. All along, Khashoggi has vehemently denied making any profits or commissions on the sales. These new revelations raise even more questions about how much of the millions in profits from the arms sales were funneled to the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, and how much ended up in the pockets of the arms dealers. Some of the weapons Iran received in the deal with the White House may be in use tonight, but they don't seem to be helping much. Reports out of Iraq say Iran has launched a major new offensive along the southern part of the war front between the two nations. It is not yet clear if the two-pronged assault is the so-called final offensive Iran has been promising to try and win the 6-year war. In any case, Iraq claims it has wiped out the leading edge of the Iranian forces, but fierce fighting is continuing. Coming up, a report that a memo has been discovered which seems to show the administration plotted to trade arms for hostages and planned a cover-up if it was ever revealed.
The Independent News brought to you by Extra Strength Bufferin and by Kraft Miracle Whip.
Staggering charge that hit the White House this morning. The New York Times reported a memo said to have been written by CIA Director William Casey that suggests the president had deliberately deceived the American people. The Times quotes an unidentified high government official who said he saw the memo. Casey is said to have written that the original purpose of the secret arms sales to Iran was to trade weapons for American hostages. President Reagan has denied that repeatedly.
We did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages.
The CIA chief allegedly wrote that if the deal ever were uncovered, the president would claim that his purpose was to search for an opening for improving relations with Iran. And that was exactly the explanation Mr. Reagan has given again and again. The White House says no one on the president's staff has ever seen such a Casey memo, and the New York Times could not determine to whom Casey sent it. The CIA won't even discuss it, and Casey is hospitalized recovering from brain cancer surgery. But just when the president was hoping to put the Iran affair on the back burner for the holidays, this story has stirred the pot.
It was obvious that the hostages were being traded for. It's clear from a lot of other evidence, but this would be a conscious, purposeful path. This would be a course of action where in advance it was decided that if we're found out, then we'll say that our motive was something else. And that puts a very, very negative cast on this whole thing.
The White House denied yet another Iran-related story today. A Miami Herald report that Chief of Staff Donald Regan tried to fire National Security Council aide Oliver North last summer because he resented North's access to the president. The story said the president intervened to save North's job. The White House says none of that is true. The president himself almost is going underground for a couple of weeks. Still, photographers got a look today as he telephoned 5 American servicemen with Christmas greetings, and we'll see him briefly in Los Angeles next Monday when he presents the Voyager round-the-world airplane crew with medals. But there's no other presidential White House schedule till at least January 12th, after his prostate surgery. By then, Mr. Reagan will be putting the finishing touches on his State of the Union address, and the White House hopes to show him then as very busy with the business of the nation and not at all preoccupied with the Iran affair. This is John Aubuchon at the White House.
Today, a Frenchman got an extraordinary Christmas present, his freedom. Aurel Corneille, a hostage in Beirut for the past 9 months, was released by his captors. The 54-year-old television journalist said he was fine as he was being swarmed by reporters. Corneille was then whisked off to the French embassy in Beirut. He'll return home tomorrow. Corneille was abducted by a pro-Iranian terrorist group. The group called his release a goodwill Christmas gesture. 5 other Frenchmen and 5 Americans are among 16 foreigners still missing in Lebanon. G. Gordon Liddy, mastermind of the 1972 Watergate break-in, has been hit with a big bill this Christmas Eve, a bill from Uncle Sam. A federal circuit court of appeals said Liddy gathered $386,000 to pay for a spy network for the Nixon re-election campaign. But Liddy could only account for about $340,000. The 3-judge panel says Liddy must pay back taxes on the remaining $46,000. The exact amount of taxes to be determined at a later date. And coming up on tonight's INN Health Beat report, Surgeons go to amazing lengths to save the limbs of this young child.